native province. All have been welcomed with open arms. Our province has contributed hundreds of billions of dollars more to the federal treasury for use in other parts of the country than we'll ever receive back in benefits. We have allowed this to occur because, quite frankly, we know how blessed our province is with an endowment of natural resources that no other country on earth possesses. And we want all of our friends, families, and fellow Canadians across the country to benefit from it. We don't ask for special treatment or handouts. We just want to be free to develop and export that incredible wealth of resources we have for the benefit of our families and future generations. Free to pursue opportunities with the ideals of entrepreneurship, hard work, and innovation that have become synonymous with the name of our province. Freedom to choose how best to provide healthcare, education, and other needed social services to our people, even if it's done differently than what Ottawa has in mind. Strong and free is more than just our provincial motto. It represents who we are and how we want to live as a people. And that is why Albertans are so frustrated with the direction of our country. For the last 10 years, successive Liberal governments in Ottawa, supported by their new Democrat allies, have unleashed a tidal wave of laws, policies, and political attacks aimed directly at Alberta's free economy, and in effect, against the future and livelihoods of our people. They have blocked new pipelines with C-69, canceled multiple oil and gas projects, and banned the very tanker ships needed to carry those resources to new markets. They have stacked an oil and gas production cap on top of a crippling industrial carbon tax, making new energy and agricultural projects economically impossible to pursue without massive subsidies from governments, which Ottawa has failed to provide and which our taxpayers cannot afford. This onslaught of anti-energy, anti-agriculture, and anti-resource development policies have scared away global investments to the tune of $500 billion, driving those investments and jobs out of Alberta and Canada to much more attractive investment climates in the United States, Asia, and the Middle East. Having traveled much of the world these past few years, it is evident that Canada is not viewed as an attractive place to invest in resource development, manufacturing, or agriculture because of our high carbon taxes, endless red tape, and the uncertainty and chaos brought about by these and other federal government policies. As a result, Canada has fallen to dead last in economic growth among industrialized nations. The world looks at us like we've lost our minds. We have the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country on earth, and yet we landlock them, sell what we do produce to a single customer to the south of us, while enabling polluting dictatorships to eat our lunch. For Albertans, these attacks on our province by our own federal government have become unbearable. As I said, these policies have cost Albertans roughly $500 billion in investment, and that loss is growing daily. It has and will continue to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services Albertans and Canadians need. And what's worse, Ottawa continues onward with more destructive policies. They have imposed net zero mandates on our natural gas-based power grid, causing investment in reliable generation from natural gas to flee, thereby endangering the future stability of our power grid and risking future blackouts and spikes in electricity costs for Alberta families and businesses. They have attacked our food producers with methane taxes, onerous regulations on fertilizer, electric vehicle mandates, and many other destructive policies that have hiked costs on our farmers and ranchers and driven billions of dollars of investment in agriculture elsewhere. They've interfered in provincial jurisdiction time and again, from taking over the regulation of plastics to mandating how we operate childcare, healthcare, and dental care, to harassing law-abiding firearms owners, to dozens of other examples of unconstitutional interference. And of course, Alberta has fought back. We always have and always will. We passed the Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act and have invoked it twice to protect Albertans as best we can from the effects of the net zero electricity regulations and the energy production cap. We beat the feds in court on both the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, and their attempt to regulate plastics, though they have ignored both court decisions to this point. And we have just announced a court challenge on the net zero electricity regulations and are further preparing to also challenge the energy production cap. We continue to do all in our power to counteract Ottawa's chill on investment in energy, agriculture, and our other job sectors through various tax cuts and incentive programs, which greatly strain the provincial budget. We have fought these attacks from Ottawa furiously and have won some important battles, but the lost opportunities, jobs, and futures of so many Albertans are costly and demoralizing, as are the growing number of Eastern politicians who choose to openly demonize and target Alberta for political gain. That is why a large majority of Albertans are so deeply frustrated with the results of last week's federal election. It's not that our preferred candidate and party lost. That happens in a democracy. It's that the same Liberal government with almost all the same ministers responsible for our nation's inflation, housing, crime, and budget crisis, and that oversaw the attack on our provincial economy for the past 10 years, have been returned to power. Now, as we all know, one thing has changed. We have a new Prime Minister. And I will say that in my first conversation with him since the election, he had some promising things to say about changing the direction of his government's anti-resource policies. However, Albertans are more of a actions speak louder than words kind of people. So while I will in good faith work with Prime Minister Mark Carney on unwinding the mountain of destructive legislation and policies that have ravaged our provincial and national economies this past decade, until I see tangible proof of real change, Alberta will be taking steps to better protect ourselves from Ottawa. As a start, I will soon appoint a special negotiating team to represent our province in negotiations with the federal government on the following reforms requested by our province. We hope this will result in a binding agreement that Albertans can have confidence in. Call it an Alberta Accord, if you will. First, Alberta requires guaranteed corridor and port access to tidewater off the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic coasts for the international export of Alberta oil, gas, critical minerals, and other resources in amounts supported by the free market rather than by the dictates and whims of Ottawa. Every province in the country, other than Alberta and Saskatchewan, have coastal port access, and no province needs it more given the size and value of our resources. This will benefit all Canadians to the tune of trillions of dollars of economic activity, including billions for First Nations partners. Second, the federal government must end all federal interference in the development of provincial resources by repealing the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the oil tanker ban, the net zero electricity regulations, the oil and gas emissions cap, the net zero vehicle mandate, and any federal law or regulation that purports to regulate industrial carbon emissions, plastics, or the commercial free speech of energy companies. These laws are destroying investment confidence and costing Canada and Alberta hundreds of billions in investments each year. They need to go. Third, the federal government must refrain from imposing export taxes or restrictions on the export of Alberta resources without the consent of the government of Alberta. Frankly, all provinces should be given that same respect for their resources. And fourth, the federal government must provide to Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other three largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. We have no issue with Alberta continuing to subsidize smaller provinces with their needs, but there is no excuse for such large and powerful economies like Ontario, Quebec, BC, or Alberta to be subsidizing one another. That was never the intent of equalization, and it needs to end. If these points can be agreed to by the federal government, I am convinced it will not only make Alberta and Canada an infinitely stronger and more prosperous country, but will eliminate the doubts a growing number of Albertans feel about the future of Alberta in Canada. While these negotiations with Ottawa are ongoing, our government will appoint, and I will chair, the Alberta Next panel. This panel will be composed of some of our best and brightest judicial, academic, and economic minds to join with me in a series of in-person and online town halls to discuss Alberta's future in Canada, and specifically what next steps we can take as a province to better protect Alberta from any current or future hostile policies of the federal government. Details of the membership and scope of that panel will be released in the coming weeks. After the work of the panel is finished, it is likely we will place some of the more popular ideas discussed with the panel to a provincial referendum so that all Albertans can vote on them sometime in 2026. To be clear from the outset, our government will not be putting a vote on separation from Canada on the referendum ballot. However, if there is a successful citizen-led referendum petition that is able to gather the requisite number of signatures requesting such a question to be put on a referendum, our government will respect the democratic process and include that question on the 2026 provincial referendum ballot as well. I also want to state unequivocally that as Premier, I'm entirely committed to protecting, upholding, and honoring the inherent rights of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Therefore, any citizen-initiated referendum question must not violate the constitutional rights of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and must uphold and honor Treaties 6, 7, and 8, should any referendum question ever pass. This is non-negotiable. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, that being separation. We are well aware that there is a large and growing number of Albertans that have lost hope in Alberta having a free and prosperous future as a part of Canada. Many of these Albertans are organizing petitions to trigger a citizen-initiated referendum, as I mentioned earlier. The vast majority of these individuals are not fringe voices to be marginalized or vilified. They are loyal Albertans. They are quite literally our friends and neighbors who've just had enough of having their livelihoods and prosperity attacked by a hostile federal government. They're frustrated, and they have every reason to be. I want to talk directly to those Albertans. I know how frustrated so many of you have become with our country and the feeling of having politicians living thousands of miles away passing laws and rules that have cost you your loved ones, jobs, careers, dreams, and opportunities for a brighter future. As most Albertans know, I have repeatedly stated I do not support Alberta separating from Canada. I personally still have hope that there is a path forward for a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. And let me explain a few reasons why. First, Alberta already has and can continue to use the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act and other measures to fight through much of Ottawa's damaging interference and prosper in spite of it. We will also continue our successful battles against these unconstitutional and damaging policies in both the courts of law and public opinion. And there is more to be hopeful for. This past election demonstrated that attitudes across the country, especially among young people, are changing with respect to understanding the importance of free markets and the development of our natural resources. People are pushing back against government censorship and cancel culture. More and more Canadians understand that in order for Canada to play a role in ending conflict and poverty at home and abroad, our country must become strong again. And we can only do that by becoming an energy and economic superpower using the vast and unmatched energy, mineral resources, and fertile lands of our country. 85% of Canadians in this last election voted for the two leaders promising to turn Canada into an energy superpower and to build resource corridors, including for oil and gas, while only 13% voted for the fringe voices in the Socialist NDP and Bloc parties and their extremist leave-it-in-the-ground policies. Obviously, we have a ways to go, and it will take a lot of work to undo the damage caused by these last 10 years of Liberal NDP rule. But that clear change in public opinion gives me hope. I think it should give all Albertans hope. Now, none of us knows what the future holds should Ottawa, for whatever reason, continue to attack our province, as they have done over the last decade. Ultimately, that will be for Albertans to decide, and I will accept their judgment. But I am going to do everything within my power to negotiate a fair deal for Alberta with the new Prime Minister. And while doing so, our government will work with Albertans on various initiatives to better protect Alberta's provincial sovereignty and economy from Ottawa should those negotiations fail. and the economic attacks continue. Alberta didn't start this fight, but rest assured we will finish it and come out of it stronger and more prosperous than ever. In closing, I want Albertans to know how important it will be in the coming months for our province to be steadfast, unified, and to refrain from heeding the voices of those seeking to divide Albertans against one another. There will be many outside, and even inside this province, who will try and sow fear and anger among us. They will seek to divide us into different camps for the purposes of marginalizing and vilifying one another based on differing opinions, effectively pitting neighbor against neighbor and Albertan against Albertan. This is not the Alberta way. It's not who we are, and it's not who I am. There are thousands of Albertans who are so frustrated with the last 10 years of Ottawa's attacks on their friends' and families' livelihoods that they feel Alberta would be stronger and more prosperous as an independent nation. That is an understandable and justifiable feeling to have, even if we disagree on what to do about it. These Albertans are not traitors, nor should they ever be treated as such. They just love their province and family and want a better future than the one Ottawa is offering them right now. There are also thousands of Albertans that are so attached and loyal to their identity as Canadians that there is nothing Ottawa has done to our province that would justify Alberta leaving Canada. It's not that they think everything is perfect or that we've been treated fairly. They just believe being part of Canada, despite those problems, has much more value than leaving. These individuals are also loyal Albertans and should never be accused of being anything less. And then there are hundreds of thousands of Albertans that probably feel a lot like I do, that are deeply frustrated with the way our province has been mistreated and damaged by successive federal Liberal governments, and are not willing to tolerate the status quo any longer. But these Albertans still believe there is a viable path to a strong, free, and sovereign Alberta empowered to succeed and prosper within a united Canada. A Canada where the federal government actually honors the Constitution, upholds provincial rights, and empowers provinces to pursue their unique potentials as their people so choose. Regardless of what each of us believes about this issue or what path we think is best, we as Albertans must be able to respectfully debate and discuss these issues with our friends, family members, and neighbors. I know that if we do that, in the end, our province will find the best solution for this immense challenge we face and come out of it stronger and more free than ever. I'll always put my faith in Albertans to find the right path. I trust you. May our beautiful Alberta always remain forever strong and free.
Wow. I don't know what you guys think. Feel free to add it in the chat. By the way, welcome, allegedly in Alberta, live special on whatever the heck that was, because my gosh, all I heard there was a lot of don't be mad at people that are sharing a different opinion of Alberta should be its own nation. And I'm not for separation if the government of Canada will fall down to whatever our needs are. I don't know about you all, but that was, in my opinion, a shot and a message of support to the separatists and the people looking to fight the government, fight the federal government. A lot of talk about constitutional freedoms and following the Constitution and all these things, which in our experience, Premier Danielle Smith doesn't do, including a number of bills which are being discussed in the legislature currently, that they're against our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, They are against human rights. Okay, you want to say that we need to have the Prime Minister come and show Alberta that they're not like the former Trudeau government and this is different. And we need to come to the table for that. Well, I think right now my first request for the federal government is to actually monitor and get some checks and balances on the money that's provided from the federal government for our public services. So Canada has a universal healthcare program that is funded by the federal government and provided by the provincial government. Well, this current UCP government and Danielle Smith have successfully changed the regulations, changed the bylaws, changed the laws, changed the bills to privatize our healthcare system and make it into a multi-tiered system. It's not just a two-tiered system. It's like a four-tiered system. And with that comes a lot of get booted there. Apologies. This is what Premier Danielle Smith is promoting, is this whole aspect of we want the federal government to provide us with all the benefits of the equalization payments. We want to be treated like Ontario and Quebec and British Columbia. We want this, we want that. But as citizens of Alberta, we're getting nothing from Premier Danielle Smith. And when we look at what that announcement was, we've got another panel. What do the panels do? The panels pay her cronies and conservative cronies. They've done it before and they'll do it again. It started with the Blue Ribbon panel under McKinnon and then Preston Manning. So you're paying these people, with Manning it was $250,000 to tell everyone that the COVID regulations weren't what the majority of the freedom fighting Alberta separatists didn't want. The far right avenue of the populace. So right now you're saying we're not going to be bullied, we're not going to be doing that, but she's doing the bullying herself. I find it very interesting that on this day where we're all wearing red, well, we're all honoring the lives of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and children, that she talks about how Alberta is the priority. Yes, she's gone and make sure she CYA'd the fact that these can't be, if we separate, if the citizens, so we know it's not the government, right? It's not Danielle Smith or any of her government lackeys that are suggesting or possibly providing resources for these citizens that are spewing the separatist rhetoric. Alberta's going to be landlocked. 100% landlocked. That comes with the territory. So you can't ask, okay, we want to be a separate nation, but we want access to all the water. We want to be able to send all our goods to other countries, to other nations, to whatever the case may be. Now, and we're talking about the oil and gas industry, and I'm not anti-oil and gas. I'm logically looking at things. How is what she said sensible? Explain that, David. How did I leap from her press conference to missing and murdered Indigenous women? Because that is the day of honoring. That's what is today, is May 5th. If you look around, you'll see red dresses and people in red in honor of them. So go ahead, David. Tell everyone how what she said is sensible. Tell me, explain to me. It's all Cinco de Mayo, yeah. It's Cinco de Mayo in the Latin culture as well. But if you look here in Canada, we are honoring our Indigenous and the horrible treatment of the murdered and missing Indigenous women and children. So, you absolutely tell me what she said that was sensible. Because from what I saw was a lot of word salad, a lot of, oh, I don't believe. Why don't I want Alberta to have provincial authority over their own resources? Because our current provincial authority are not honest or transparent. How can you collect the amount of funds that they've collected from the federal government and your healthcare system is collapsing? How can you look people in the eyes and say you take care of the province and you care about the resources? How can we come across watching the same thing and have two different takes? Because I'm using critical thinking. I don't care about what party's in power. I'm not about red, blue, orange. The politicians are, I'm not a politician supporter. I don't care about who's in power. I care about integrity, honesty, and transparency. And right now, and she also took billions of dollars in payments and they've gone missing. Explain to me, again, explain to me how you say you take care of the province and you cut I'm not walking away from the speech with the critical analysis. I'm giving you critical analysis right now. The fact is that this pre-recorded rhetoric is what Smith is great for. Okay. Tell me how you can justify taking money away from the lowest income, most impoverished people in this province on AISH. Explain that one. Because right now, if you are not someone with privilege or a have, you're one missed payment away from being houseless. And if you continue the current belief that what money have they taken away? The federal government provided extra income for disabled Canadians. And the UCP government is taking that money away. See, and this is where you have no critical thinking, David, because you're blaming the Liberals and the NDP. Because the country was in dire straits under Stephen Harper. If it wasn't for current Prime Minister Mark Carney, Canada would have hit the same recession as the United States did. How the NDP responsible for all the woes of all Canadians over the last 10 years? The NDP have no power. And no, the Liberals don't get a pass. The Liberals did some terrible things under the Trudeau government. Slow down when you're typing, because 2105 has not happened yet. Carney had everything to do with the financial crisis. I haven't been debunked. You've been brainwashed. If you want to go into the whole thing, so you're saying the last year that Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, people were in great state. You're telling me all Canada was in a better state in 2015 than they are now. You're saying that the treatment of people in poverty was greater in 2015 than it is now. You're saying that the Indigenous people were treated better in 2015 than they are now. Majority of Canadians were way better off. Okay. If you want to prove that, go ahead. Go hard. Because I know a lot of Canadians that weren't better off. More in poverty now, yes, because the fact that you have conservative governments and liberal governments and capitalist corporations that are destroying the nation. So it doesn't matter who you put into power, as long as they're supporting the capitalist system, there's going to be more poverty. Right now, the wealth gap is so large that it's like a Grand Canyon between the global elite and the people in dire poverty. The resources are there. So we'll go back to what the province could do. So if we're talking about that Danielle Smith is doing everything in her power and all these sort of things, no, I'm saying capitalism's bad, Orange Man's bad, the capitalists are bad. And if you think capitalism is good, it's because you've been whitewashed for your education. And if you say socialism isn't good, then how the hell did all these companies stay afloat? When the government gives corporations money, that's called socialism. There's no utopian socialist society. And Cuba isn't socialist, it's communist. Let's look at Alberta. If Premier Danielle Smith was doing everything that was best for Alberta, and you're traveling all over the world, well, I'm winning the argument. There's no argument. You're looking at this through a fact that you're supporting capitalism. And I'm telling you that capitalism is going to kill you. It's going to kill me. It's going to kill everyone. If we continue in the situation and the system that we're in, everyone's done. Again, back to Alberta. If we're talking about what's best for business, we're talking about how do we provide, what does Alberta have for a resource? Well, of course, it has the oil and gas sector. It has actually some of the largest natural gas resources in the world. If Premier Danielle Smith was doing what's best for business and not what's best for looking good for a certain orange bad man, Premier Danielle Smith would go to China and negotiate. Because if China isn't getting energy from the United States, they're going to have to get it from somewhere else. And if Alberta wants to distribute our energy at a price point that's going to benefit Alberta, you might want to go and negotiate with China. So we're sitting here, we're signing deals, we're doing what's best for Alberta, right? You're signing deals with the United States to provide them discounted fuel, and the price of oil is in the toilet thanks to OPEC. And OPEC is going to do whatever the hell they want anyway, because all the money is in Saudi Arabia and all the wealth is in Saudi Arabia. We're talking about you need to pick a choice here. If you want to look at GDP, the countries that are in the opposite of the United States and the opposite of NATO in BRICS have a higher GDP than all the countries in NATO or in the UN. So yes, having a deal with China would be a smart thing because China has all the funding right now. Because when everyone takes out these mass loans and have this mass debt, who's buying it up? China's buying it up. So if you want to see having nothing, then we'll continue doing what we're doing and let China cash in the debt, and then they'll own it anyway. I'm not a communist. China's not on the verge of collapse politically and economically. I can't believe you're saying that. Unbelievable. So what we need to do is we need to, what am I? I'm a human being. I'm someone who's using logical thought and understanding of the systems that we're in. No, I don't have, iPhone's not telling me anything because I'm not listening to technology. Thanks for coming out. So I suggest you go and learn some more about China before spewing off about how they're in economic collapse. Because if you want to learn something that's in economic collapse, it's the province of Alberta. Because we're just sitting here allowing the UCP government keep telling yourself that. How much better has life been for you since the UCP government's been in power? And I'm not talking about if you are sitting here wanting you to be racist or transphobic or any of those sort of things. I'm talking about your life, your kids' lives, education system, healthcare system. What's the average wait time in the hospital for you? How many surgeries have you had postponed? I'm here in central Alberta, and every government since I've been here has promised a new healthcare system. Yes, isms and phobe stuff. You know what it is? It's called trash. If you're transphobic, racist, ableist, sexist, or homophobic, bye-bye. We don't have a conversation because that is called not valuing human beings. And there's no Kool-Aid being drank. Thanks. Anyone else want to join the conversation? Feel free. You know, we've chased many people away here with some different point of view. You can have whatever belief you want. If you don't accept a person because of their choice, sure. Terrible ideas. I'm a radical leftist. It's called speaking the truth. If more people actually listen to the truth, we wouldn't be in the shit state that we're in. And that comes from both sides of the coin. Where you're looking at the demands are to be treated with respect and decency. That's not a demand, that's called a basic human right. Sure, I'm crazy. So the point being, going back to central Alberta, where I'm based, the fact that every government, from the NDP to the PC to the UCP, have all promised expansion of the hospital. None of them have provided any sort of funding for the Red Deer Regional Hospital Center. The only reason why there's any sort of cardiology department is the fact that the Donald family wrote a big check. That had nothing to do with the UCP, had nothing to do with Adrienne Lagrange or any of the other bullshit that's being spewed. That had to do with private citizens funding a hospital. That's it. That's the money that's gone into the Red Deer Hospital. So all the governments have failed Central Albertans. and rural Alberta. The UCP government continues to fail Albertans. When you're spending $250,000 to refurnish your office and cutting services left, right, and center, that's not what's best for Alberta. I'm sure you're curious. Many. So what's next to stop separation for Alberta? Because right now it's Alberta against separation. That's where the message is coming from here. Because a separate province is not going to benefit anyone. And according to all the different treaties and the documents that have been signed, it's going to be damn near impossible to happen, regardless of what Premier Danielle Smith is saying. No, I haven't read Carney's book as of yet. Have you read it? Is it good? So we're going to claim the Clarity Act. Is that the plan here? Okay, so he used fear to frighten boomers and low IQ voters. So tell me, why did you vote Conservative? And does that act not have to have the majority of provinces agree to it? Yeah, so I ask you, you clearly are not a Liberal fan. sensible policies are providing tangible direction. Who did you vote for? No. Who's your candidate? Who did you vote for? Because voting for Conservative in Canada, you're voting for a local MP. So who did you vote for? Okay, you're in BC. So who's the Conservative candidate that you voted for, or did you just see Conservative and check the box? And what had Mark Dalton done prior to, or for him to run, that you chose to vote in Mark Dalton? Well, I'm glad to hear that. Honestly, no, that's great. If you had talks with them and it was an informed vote, congrats. And I'm glad that the person that you voted for got in and can represent you. That's fantastic. The reason why I asked that and was not to be, I apologize if it came across as rude or whatever. It's the fact that locally, a lot of our people here in Alberta voted for the Conservative. Who was a Conservative? They couldn't tell you. They just saw Conservative on the ballot and voted them in. In Red Deer, the Conservative was Adriana Lagrange's former assistant. One of the reasons why the Conservatives are labeled as that is there's a lot of people in the party that are that. Who I voted for? I voted for the young NDP candidate because there was no other choice. Our MP, because it didn't matter who I voted for, the Conservative MP Blaine Culkins was going to get in. It doesn't matter what the vote was. Wanted to see a young guy who put his name up to have some votes, but it was going to be Culkins getting in anyway because he's one unattested. I have nothing bad to say about Blaine Culkins. I've met him multiple times. I don't agree with a lot of his stances, but it's got nothing to do with what he is as being a dad or husband and representative. He's that. And no, it's not about a lie or telling it's true. It is true. 100% it's true. When you have members of your cabinet meeting with extremists from Germany, so let's just say here, one Nazi at a table equals a table of them. So if you allow one person to have that rhetoric, yes, she is. "100% Wilbur Fire. That's been my argument No, inviting we can argue till the cows come home, David. No, inviting a Nazi, a known Nazi, into Parliament was not okay, and I've been against that. I've spoken out against that multiple times. I've spoken out against the fact that Chrystia Freeland has not denounced her grandfather's horrible actions during the Second World War. Just because you're Ukrainian doesn't mean you can't be a Nazi or a fascist. It's a very, very complicated, very, very complicated system. %100. And if we want to go historically, there were Zionists in Israel that welcomed 100%. It's an uphill battle. Actually, the worst part about the Ukraine is the fact that the American conglomerate of BlackRock went in there when the battle started and have put in multiple investments in there and basically own the economy. And then with Zelensky signing off, if it comes true that he signed off to the U.S. of bringing in their own support, that you're basically giving the Ukraine to the United States, and we foresee the Ukraine becoming a European version of Israel. So I'm Scottish Ukrainian in descent, so totally understand the aspect of exactly. Ukraine was never going to win. It's just a senseless war for power. It's about killing everyone and just showing that a global power can still control. So unfortunately, now you see in this conversation, we all agree on the fact that the Ukraine was never going to win the war, and we've been fed U.S. propaganda on that war. Not saying that Putin is a good person at all, because sure shit he ain't, but there's different stories that are being played. It's like the same thing with China. Not everyone is good and bad, and who you think is good isn't necessarily good, and who you think is bad isn't necessarily bad. What we have to realize, and this is where your mainstream media really is notorious at, is it's not good versus evil. Because the person that they're presenting you as the hero should be wearing a black hat as well. It's like black hat. It's like villain versus villain. But that doesn't make a great story. Like I tell my wife all the time that the world in current politics is like wrestling. A villain versus villain match is not going to draw as well as a hero versus villain. Or hero versus hero is not going to draw as well as a hero versus villain. So you have to have the heroes, you have to have the villains. And Trump coming in, learned from Vince McMahon and how to build a character. And that's why he is where he is today. The danger isn't necessarily Trump. He is a danger, but the danger is what's lying behind Trump. It's like the same thing what's lying behind Polyev. What's lying behind Mark Carney. These are the things we need to understand, and a lot of it is the global economy and the elitists. That's the danger. Even if they're the fascists, the socialists, the Catholic, like all of them are awful, but they're controlling it to make sure like people like us are having this argument over trans rights or over who's like if Alberta should separate or who's better, the Conservatives or the Liberals. Neither one of them are really good. Just in our current economic or our current political system, we have to make a choice. What color are you going to choose? And who's best for what you want to see as a society? For me, I want to see I want to see, number one, a future for our kids. And the way the system is going, there's no future. So when people are spending their time being distracted by the Taylor Swifts and the Travis Kelce's, or distracted by Trump, or distracted by Elon Musk, or distract. That's all people are doing. They're all just being distracted. So if you go and look at it with the critical thought, like I was saying before, and go, okay, I'm going to watch a hockey game. I'm an Oilers fan. Oilers play tomorrow night. It's a playoff game. Oh, okay, I can enjoy this. The reason I can enjoy it is because I have to turn my mind off. Because if I didn't, and I looked at it through the eyes that we're talking about now in regards to political and economical and all that stuff, I would just see it's millionaires playing for billionaires, and you lose all the joy. So at times you have to just turn your brain off and just be distracted, but you have to choose to be distracted. We can't just sit here with the technology that we have that's like a slot machine for your senses. And it's not a good slot machine. I mean, I wish more people would have these conversations and would have more things that we're talking about that's more talking truth than just talking about the rhetoric of what's being presented. I've always been a person that's been curious of why. Why are these things happening? And then when you find out why they're happening, want to see how can we stop it from continuing to happen? If things are killing our fellow citizens, regardless if it's black, brown, indigenous, white, if people are being killed because of global domination, that's not okay. Like, when did we become the fact that the Call of Duty and the Medal of Honor and all these video games, these first-person shooters, is become reality and just life? And now we're at a point where we don't even have to have boots on the ground to kill people. We can just send in drones. So you don't have the blood on your hands from killing a fellow human. But I don't know about you, but I can't sit and watch. Like, I wouldn't be able to sit and watch people being just murdered, especially innocent people being murdered. But just in general, like, we've gotten this bloodthirst sort of thing. And when it's an action movie or it's a wrestling match or it's a UFC or whatever that is sanctioned, that is structured, that's different than human beings just being decimated. And unfortunately, that's what I see in our society right now, regardless of who's in charge. And until we actually are able to look at our neighbors and look at our citizens and say, hey, we shouldn't be killing each other. We should be making sure we take care of each other. We're all in a lot of trouble. So for me, I've been fighting the UCP government since 2019, under the Alberta Accountability Alliance since 2023. So when we're looking at the Alberta Accountability Alliance, we are a nonpartisan voice for the people, registered political and electoral third-party advertiser here in the province of Alberta. And you can support us through all the things that are going across. Yeah, what started as a conversation, I didn't see what some people are seeing that Danielle Smith said today. I was very disappointed that what I thought was going to be said was said, and it was a lot of talking about, I'm not doing it, but I won't not support it if that's what our province wants. And there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are directing other people in the province to determine what they want. And it's just disappointing, totally disappointing. And if we could take care of, this is the thing, if the citizens, if every, like, we'll go to Garth Brooks for the song, if every child had a crust of bread and we didn't get charged for the words that we said, and people aren't dead, we will be free. But we can't be free as long as there's people that are struggling, and there's people with extreme amounts of wealth that no one could spend in a lifetime, and people are starving to death in the streets. Like, we can't have that. That just doesn't work. So we have an idea about the Mutual Aid Manifesto for Alberta. It is on our website, aballiance.ca. You can check it out. You want to purchase some of the merchandise. We're right now, our push is for a united Canada. We want to unite as the Wolverines of unity. Why did we choose Wolverines? We chose Wolverines because, well, a lot of people don't realize that the Wolverines of Canada are almost extinct. And they fight regardless of the size. They will fight any animal and will do anything to survive. And that's basically what I feel like we have to do right now to bring people together and be the Wolverines to take care of our pack and take care of society in general. Again, like, subscribe, join us, see full episodes of The Allegedly in Alberta at substack.com or here on YouTube. Thanks for joining us all. Have yourself a great evening.